And here we go again for another edition of Tuesday Night Live. I can hardly speak, apparently, because it's so damn cold. I'll hand you over to Pete. How you going, Peter?
Hi, mate. How you going? Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Tuesday Night Live Crowcast. Great to have you all with us, and it's a cold, freezing, horrible night, and pretty reflective of where we were on Saturday night as well, with a pretty cold, miserable game down there at the Cattery. So we'll have a chat about that and a few other things tonight, and we'll welcome our panellists for this evening, the usual crew of Macca 23, Danos, Nikki, and Phoenix, if he wants to have a chat as well. How's everybody tonight?
Good, thank you.
Cold.
Good, mate.
Great to have you all with us, and don't forget, if you want to message in, you can do so. And any topics at all you want us to have a chat about, we're happy to. Just send us a message and we'll be all interactive with you and have a chat about any subjects that you raise. All right, without further ado, we'll have a little bit of a listen to Nikki and whatever news she has for this evening.
Well, the big news out of the weekend was pretty much that, yay, Port's season is over in terms of finals, possibly, mostly. Weirdly, St Kilda is still in the running with a really bad percentage, but it's highly unlikely they're going to get in. But they have been playing some nice football. But I think the biggest thing that came out of the weekend was the damage in terms of injuries, particularly to the Bulldogs, with Wallace breaking his own leg. And Redpath also out for the year. And really, what was Luke Beveridge doing, crying once again about a player being injured?
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Nikki. I just think the whole crying thing is getting a little bit overdone. And look, it was a horrible, horrible injury, and apparently the scenes in the dressing rooms were pretty bad, and all the rest of it. And that's really. And apparently there was reports that supposedly the players crying as well. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a bit of a knob, but I don't see it. I really don't.
It's just.
Sorry, Nicky, I was just going to say it's a very unusual type of injury, though, isn't it? Because, a very nasty one, but that's the first time I've ever seen anybody break their own leg by kicking it.
Oh, it was horrific, Macca, and I'm not trying to denigrate the extent of the injury. It was absolutely horrific, and you don't wish that upon anybody at all. It was awful, but I guess the issue that Nikki raises is, crying about it afterwards, and I just think it's a bit much, to be honest.
Well, he complains about everything, that bloke. So, the only thing I will say for it, that you do like to see a coach at least care for his players, and I think he obviously does that, but he's such an unlikable character. I think we tend to criticise him for everything.
I think he cares for some, but not all. I'm getting very much a Sanderson vibe from him, that it's the higher level players, or those that have been there a little while, they're his favourites, and the ones that are lower down the rung are possibly ignored. You only have to think about why Lin Jong was looking in other areas, considering the Bulldogs seem to be on the rise, but he was very interested in looking at going to Collingwood, who at that stage hadn't actually been playing that well.
It's an interesting point there, actually.
And the other thing that came out from the weekend was the very open discussion regarding Brad leaving Hawthorn when his next contract is up, and pretty much stipulating that he's going to go to Fremantle. To me, that actually came across as a pretty mature way. We've resigned ourselves to the fact that players are going to be able to dictate quite strongly where they're going to go. But I did like that Clarkson was going, well, yeah, no, we can understand it will help, but we're not giving him away for free.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things there, though, Nikki. It was a very mature approach, but I think he's also done a secondary motive behind it, in the sense that he can talk up a price for him now and he was talking about a first rounder, etc. When you listen to the boys, I think it was either Talking Footy or Footy Classified, that that he might be more around about pick 18, 21 or low 20s. And seriously, he isn't worth more than that.
Oh, you get your hands on a Hawthorn premiership player. It's always fairly nice. I agree that he's probably a late first rounder, early second. So, of course, you're going to have one club trying to overinflate because this is the player that's leaving, so they want a really good price for them, hence the Essendon. And then you want the other club that's going to try and lower the price, and they'll eventually come to a little agreement in the middle. But the other big news is what's going to happen tomorrow. In a joint announcement across Australia, the marquee players are going to be named for the Women's League, and I know one of the names for our team.
Well, it's in the news, so I think you should.
So Chelsea Randall from WA, who is one of the top players, and this is a hell of a coup for our club. She's a strong marking centre-half forward. Interestingly, she's the development officer for Swan District. So our club's obviously put together a very nice enticement for her to come over. We weren't the only club chasing her signature. There were a number, but we were her preference in the end. So there's going to be a few movements, particularly from WA and Victoria. And also what I found quite interesting is that the draft that's going to happen, the players get to stipulate in that draft where they want to live, what states they will accept, if they will accept to move, which ones they're happy to move to or whether to stay, and those will be honoured, which, considering the lower pay that's going to occur, that these are players who it's only a short period of time, I think it's probably fair initially that it's done this way.
I think it's very good, Nikki. I reckon that makes a lot of common sense, given as you say, very short season and not getting a lot of money for it. It makes absolute sense.
Yeah, and so it means the AFL has actually listened to a lot of the players that they're saying, well, look, we do want to play and we do want to be a part of this, but we also do have lives outside of it, and our work life kind of is initially going to take priority.
Nappies to change and meals to make and washing to do and all that sort of stuff.
Can I smack you? You be quiet. Go back to
I'm
the
not
kitchen.
here.
Yeah, precisely. And then the one other thing of which our club did remarkably well in was the round 23 fixtures. I don't care. I have no idea who else is playing, but we're playing Friday night at home.
Yeah, that was a great
best
result.
time slot for the weekend.
Very, very happy with that result. Diabolical thought that we would have to play that game on a Monday night just to suit the AFL TV programming, and I was very, very happy that our CEO got over there and made the point and didn't allow the club to be pushed around, and we've ended up with an excellent time slot.
He made it exceedingly well and loudly and with some curse words, apparently. And the AFL just kind of went, okay.
It does mean that we get some a pretty tight run home, though, with a couple of 6-day breaks to finish up, plus a Perth trip in there.
I agree with that. I don't think it's all roses, quite frankly, in the sense that I understand why they didn't want to have the Monday, but one of the advantages of the Monday is exactly what Phoenix was saying then, is that we would get a longer break, an 8-day break rather than a 6-day break, and a 5-day break.
And also with the week off in between round 23 and the finals, it meant if we played on a Monday, then we still had a long break until the final.
Yeah, and that was the next point I was going to make, is that if we did play the Monday and had accepted it, then I would negotiate that we then had our first final on a Thursday night. So that way you got a situation that you would have a nice even spacing in between games. So I know that the match committee at the Crows would have preferred to go on the Monday, but the Crows admin, from the overall financial point of view, and also from the spectators' point of view, took all that into consideration and went the way they did.
Well, the players, professionals, they can do with 6-day breaks, and I'm sure they'll be fine. I think that overall the benefits far outweigh the negatives on that one. I'm probably just speaking as a selfish supporter, but much easier to get along on a Friday night, and it does really hamper. And I can't stand Thursday night football either. It does really hamper attendance when you've got those odd time slots.
And also, Friday night game, they always seem to have that real feel of a final anyhow. So
Exactly true.
having that kind of intensity going on, the national spotlight, on you, I can actually see that as a really good push for our players. It's like, no. This is what it's going to be like. Get used to it. Do what you have to do. And get us in the best possible position for a tilt at winning a couple of finals.
I hope we do, Nikki.
And just before we leave the news, can I just add, let's talk about Pop, baby. Let's talk about Ken Hinkley. You like that? Did you like that? I can't
What
leave
the hell was that?
Did you like it? It was a bit impromptu, but I just sort of had to give it a bit of a crack.
I think
you've been rehearsing it all week. You're on the run again, Pete.
They are.
Well, since Sunday night.
They are like a twitching wildebeest on the side of the road that have been mortally wounded by a big cat, and they're just there now, just twitching, just waiting for the scavengers to come in and pick up the off meat. They are just about done.
You don't have a port membership on the side then.
We obviously need to look out for some flying hooves then when we come near them.
Yeah. And
we'll take care of them pretty easily, I reckon.
Beware the wounded wildebeest.
Yeah, that's right. But very happy with the result. And the funny thing is that we all knew. I don't know how you all felt, but we all knew watching the game on Sunday that it was infinitely better for Adelaide for Port to have won that game on Sunday. But I just could not bring myself to sit there and watch a team play Port and not barrack for them.
Yeah, I was oscillating up and down like 100 times a quarter because for the very reason you said. I knew it was better for the Crows, but geez, it's hard to barrack for that mob.
I did like Chris Dittmar's analogy he used on Monday morning. He actually said that Port are like Richmond, irrelevant.
Yeah, I like that. And there's just moments in the game when I don't know if you noticed it, but when Chad Wingard put a high tackle on Phil Davis and didn't get pulled up for it, dragged him to the ground, and then Chad, not happy with that much work, he just then stands over Phil Davis and then has that kind of that really theatrical talk to him while he's on the ground, and so that everyone then comes in and has a scuff on it. It just had such a look of such a dick, and I was just so happy that they lost. I really was.
You only do those things when you can back it up and keep winning, because often it will backfire against you.
He did the same thing against Hawthorn, and he seems to be so obsessed with, with his own strut that he's forgetting that he's actually not playing particularly good football.
I actually, as a person, as an individual, I detest him actually, because he for the very reason that you're just saying.
And Vardy Magic just pointed out that they go hard at their own, and so I responded to him. It is fun to watch that happening from the outside, though.
The other thing I wanted to talk about tonight, just while we're still on news, and it kind of is news, just recapping the interview last week that we had with Kenrick Tyrrell over at the USAFL that Phoenix and AC did. It was a fantastic interview. We didn't really get much of a chance to have a chat about it because we were a little bit pushed for time, but just wonder what everybody thought about it. I thought it was a really interesting interview, and I was also interested to note through the week that I had a little bit of a scan around, and that there's a very, very strong, I don't know if it's strong, but a very, very organised league that goes on around Europe as well, with some European championships coming up. So it's interesting to see that there is a lot of football that goes on overseas, and probably it's a little bit more popular than what I gave it credit for, I think. And it was certainly good to have my eyes open last week to what's going on in the US. And if I know that we got a little bit of a spike in plays from people over there in the US. So if there's anybody that's coming for a double listen, we welcome you to the show and hope that you continue to join us. But I thought it was a really enlightening interview.
See, I have a friend from the Netherlands, and he's born and raised, family's been in the Netherlands for quite a while. And he actually, I remember him sending me a message going, I'm going to play footy. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but what? And he goes, no, I found there's a local team and I'm going to join. And he did. He went out and he joined, and the Netherlands apparently has quite a little strong competition going on there. And that was something I wasn't fully aware of.
Well, the European Championship that I was reading through the week, they just announced the Croatian team that's going to be entering in, and then they mentioned the Swedish team that's going to be entering.
Do they spell it Croatia? Croatia?
You're funny.
Tonight. You are sharp tonight, mate. So anyway, it was good. It was interesting to see all these countries playing.
No, it was good, and I really enjoyed listening to. I mean, the Kenrick's his story as to where he's kind of got to, but that whole background of a lot of it is initially started by expats, but the core of it really is these people who have never really been exposed to the game before until these expats have come in or they've caught a little something on telly and they went, hey, I'll give that a try. And that's got to be absolutely commended.
Yeah, and certainly you would have thought there would be some interest there from the AFL clubs over and above the combine that they have over there, as to whether they would, be keen to try and get hold of some more talent in that way, or at least keep it under observation. I really enjoyed the story when AC asked him to mention a story that where something unusual happened on the field because of a bit of a mix-up in cultures, and when Kenrick said that we know where the line is so that we can have a bit of push and shove, and but he ended up in a sleeper hold, in a choke hold.
Yeah, that was funny, that bit.
Hopefully they can learn some Australian ways that'll make them a little bit better. But for me, I think what it is with that there's not a lot of buy-in from the clubs here is that it's possibly because they're not aware of what's going on over there. And I think it needs to be, and hopefully if we have some people who are listening overseas who are involved in clubs over there, it's contact the AFL clubs, just try and start a dialogue. It's amazing, I think, what can happen from there, because from what we're aware that there's possibly going to be hopefully some dialogue happening from the Crows towards the Austin Crows. And if we were able, if we've been able to help that in any small way, I mean, yay.
Yeah, that's right. Well, certainly a big shout out to the Austin Crows. And if anyone of the guys there still listen, apart from last week, that don't hesitate to drop us a line. Maybe let us know what your scores are, any kind of information. We're quite happy to engage with you and do anything like that, and certainly give you a shout out. So all good stuff. All right, perhaps should move on to the debacle that was the game on Saturday night between the Crows and the Cats. It was a very, very ordinary spectacle indeed. So much so that we don't even have any highlights, because there weren't any highlights.
Hang on, Pete. I do have highlights.
We do have some highlights.
Yeah, you ready?
All ready.
And that was the highlights. Back to you, Pete.
Thanks, mate.
I was waiting for a little bit of silence. Well,
Fantastic
hang on. JJ's goal was pretty good.
Oh, look, the whole. I mean, it was a debacle of the game, and there was. I think I've been fairly vocal this week in my criticism of the coach. I thought the coaching was really, really poor.
Rotten. Yep.
It really. It stank, and the reason it stank is because we all. I mean, I was at the game in round 8, and it was just. It looked to me to be, almost a carbon copy of the way that their defence set up. And another low scoring slugfest, and we just didn't seem to have cooked up any kind of imaginative ideas as to how we were going to combat that between round 8 and round 18. It just seems that, we didn't learn our lessons at all, and we ended up with the same result. And that's our 2 lowest scores for the year against one team. So, really poor performance.
When you look back at it, I was quite angry about the coaching, really, because we decided to play a 5-man forward line against their 6, and we had played our extra player on the ball with the aim at trying to win the clearances, but we weren't even winning those. And yet we persevered with this structure, and which meant that when they formed their press, because the ground is much narrower, you could probably use 1 or 2 less in the press and drop them back, which is exactly what they did. And as Phoenix described it, like virtually a 2-stage defence. And we in that third quarter, there was not a chance in hell that we were going to ever score the way we were structured, and our blokes didn't really know what to do because they had nowhere to go when they just even when they did get a little bit clear of the ball, they had nobody to kick to, and yet the coaching just stayed the same all the time. I just thought it was very, very ordinary.
Yeah, he well and truly had his pants pulled down for the second time by the same coach. Sorry, Phoenix, you're going to say?
No, but I will say something. I reviewed the game again, and I tell you what, if we didn't have such a terrible set of disposal errors, we probably would have won the match.
I think so.
Yeah, I looked at it again, and I looked at it really hard. In that third quarter, we were horrendous by foot, and a couple of errors were really key, and you could see us drop our heads, and that's what caused them to get their run on. And aside from that, despite being denied the corridor and despite being denied any sort of real run and carry, we actually outscored them apart from that period. So, disposal efficiency was, when you look at it again, Macca, it was absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, I had another look myself, and I can't argue with what you're saying. And there were many reasons for it. Some were the pressure that Geelong was putting on. Some was perceived pressure. Some was when there was no pressure. But then also because they had really often they didn't have a target to kick to, but even when they did have a target, as you said, the disposal was very ordinary. But it was a fiasco that third quarter. But the rest of the game, even in spite of
it was close.
It was, less than a goal in it for the rest of the game, and that's despite, I think being structured badly and poor coaching, etc., and poor disposal of the whole lot, and yet we were still in the game if you could ignore that one quarter, but in that one quarter it was just, the perfect storm. It was just all the factors came into play, and it was terrible.
Barty Magic raised something very interesting here. So, for a couple of teams, their last game at Cardinia Park. So, Essendon last played there the 21st of August, 1993. Carlton last played there the 16th of August, 1997. Collingwood the 10th of July, 1999. And the last time Richmond were there was in 2012. That's shocking.
Yeah, I picked that up myself, Nicky. I was going to actually raise that. The fact is that we clubs who aren't Victorian always get to go down to that stinking stadium, and whereas the local favourite Victorian clubs, they don't. They manage to play Geelong at the MCG or one of those, and it's disgraceful bias by the VFL.
Well, it's not commercially viable for those teams to play down there, and that's really the. It's
not commercially viable for us either.
The short and curlies of it is it's just not commercially viable, and so those clubs, regardless of where they are on the ladder, I mean, teams like Carlton have been a poor team for a long time, so there's no probably special advantage about playing them down there, but. With the crowds that these teams pull, there's just no way that the AFL are ever going to give them games down at Cardinia Park. It's just so commercially unviable.
But Pete,
Richmond, Essendon, and Collingwood they all have very large supporter bases.
They'd
So
still,
it
Exactly.
is-
they'd still
Yeah.
sell out the stadium.
Well, of course they would. They'd sell it 3 times over. And sorry, you're probably misunderstanding what I'm saying. It's not commercially viable from the point that there's too many people. So they've got to play
right.
they've got to
Okay.
play it at the they've got to play it at the MCG or other grounds because they lose too much money by playing it down at Cardinia Park because the ground's just not big enough.
Okay, I thought
And
you were
yet we
arguing the
have a
other
huge-
way.
No, sorry,
we
mate,
have a
sorry.
huge travelling supporter base who can't actually. We know that there were lots of people who were trying to get tickets for the game on the weekend and couldn't because it was sold out because it's initially pretty much just Geelong supporters. And our supporter base has been argued that we travel and we travel well as to why we get to play at some bigger venues in Victoria. So
we normally do, but I mean, the problem with this particular year is, of course, that they've got renovations going on to the stand, and so that limits even further the amount of people that can go there. And we might find with the new stands that they've got there that they will be able to have a team like Collingwood down there because they'll be able to fit more people in, and certainly we'll never get a game against it with the MCG other than a final because of the fact that there's now going to be some increased capacity. But I think this year we wouldn't have had a chance. We would have been shut out of tickets a little bit because of the renovations that were going on.
Still only going to be 30k when they finish the renovations. You would have thought Geelong Adelaide would get 45 to 50 at Etihad if they played it there.
I think they're claiming they'll get 40,000 in once that's finished.
No, 30.
So they got 30 now before that started.
No, it was about 26, I reckon. I reckon it's going to be about 32.
That's
and there's
pathetic.
issues in Geelong in terms of people leaving. So you wouldn't want to build a bigger stadium because I don't think it's going to be viable.
Which makes the whole renovation thing, makes you question the whole renovation, why they're doing it.
It was a promise from the state government.
But Nicky, you saying that because of the motor vehicle industry? Is that what you're saying that for?
Yeah, Geelong is very much on the slide. With losing that particular industry, there's not a lot else coming in. The reinvigoration with the issues they've had with the council down there, from what I understand, is not been good. And are people going to have that extra money to buy a season ticket or even go to the footy?
Didn't they also have a head office of one of the major retail places down there that they've closed?
Which one was
They
it?
also-
Was it Target or...
They also moved the admin of the National Disability Insurance Scheme down there as well, and I believe that's getting relocated out of Geelong as well.
But can this
Yes.
be true? Danger told us it's heaven on earth down there.
It's all
No,
on the up and
that's
up.
not Geelong. That's not Geelong. Smog's Creek.
Mogs.
Yeah.
That's where the money's gone. You see, it's all in paper bags to Dangerfield.
Just to the
That's
how many
why-
Dangerfield
That's
families.
why the town's gone broke.
But
But anyway,
Dangerfield could just hire everyone, couldn't he?
he probably could. That's the answer to why the big clubs don't go anyway. It's just not commercially viable. So, but the fact is that we have played down there. I don't know, God knows how many times, and
Normally
we can't
every year.
we can't beat them down there. And I read a whole lot of rubbish about the dimensions of the ground and all the rest of it this week. Well, Adelaide Oval, we couldn't beat them in Adelaide Oval either. So, and we don't seem to have trouble with any other team there. So, there's a lot there for Pikey to think about, and the fact that he wasn't able to create a structure that was able to overcome their very, very good defensive setup.
Well, we'll make one observation, Pete, on that. If you compare how we played against them to how Sydney plays against them down there, and if you have a look at the makeup of Sydney as opposed to Adelaide, Sydney have that strong-bodied, bullocking midfield with a touch of class and a touch of pace about them, and they were able to run at the Geelong zone and get through it. Whereas we didn't have the same penetration with our midfield. We're very one-paced and weren't willing to be aggressive by hand. So we tended to try and kick over and hence just kick to their defensive setup. So it's a real study in the way to play Geelong when you look at how Sydney played them a couple of weeks ago compared to how we played them on the weekend. One's the blueprint and the other one's the how not to do it.
Nice input there. I agree with everything
Yeah,
you
good
said there.
observations. Good observations, mate.
I think the cold's keeping him awake, isn't it?
I did point out in trying to make something positive out of this was that last time we got beaten by Geelong, we then won the next 8 games in a row. So we've been beaten by Geelong, and I'd like us to win at least the next 8 games in a row. That'd be good.
Well, that'd be a winning grand final then, wouldn't it, Nikki?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be handy, that's for sure. All right, let's move on, I guess. Shall we have a look at the Phoenix? Sorry to throw this upon you, but shall we have a look at the Cock-Wombling Numbnut of the Week award?
You don't want to look at Essendon quickly because I've got
Or
some
do you wanna-
highlight. I've got
Well,
some highlights ready.
I'll give you a little hint. The Cock-Wombling Numbnut of the Week award is kind of related to the Geelong game, so it might be a good idea to do now.
All right, let's do that now then. One moment, please.
Thank you.
Underground, overground, wombling free.
I still get annoyed every time you stop that. I was like, I want it to keep going.
I do too. I like it.
I kind of sit here and bop along to it. Now, Cameron Ling is an idiot, basically. So during the game, there was a particular incident that occurred where Kyle Hartigan was tackled high by
I know.
Bartel. To be fair, yes, he did he was lower. He did duck down a little bit, but you're still not allowed to tackle somebody high. But Ling was trying to argue that the interpretation changed last year, and he was stating that if you ducked, it was prior opportunity. Now, this is correct, but the guys up in the box kept trying to point out to him that the tackle still had to be a legal tackle. And he wasn't having a bar of that.
The only time it doesn't have to be a legal tackle is if a player actually drives with the head, and that's where he was wrong, because Hartigan might have gone low, but he didn't drive with the head. Once someone initiates contact by driving, then all bets are off. But if someone just ducks down low, then yes, they're deemed to have prior opportunity, but the tackle still has to be legal. And I'd argue Hartigan actually disposed of the ball in a reasonable amount of time anyway.
Yep. And
I did think that there was some irony that there we were at Simon Stadium, and the Duke of Ducking himself was running around and got his usual 3 or 4 high tackle free kicks that he always gets, and we just accept that he gets them. And then astonishingly, there is a call on a rule that was brought in last year, and a call that probably hasn't been made that I've seen all year. All of a sudden, somebody is ducking into a tackle. I didn't put my foot through the TV because it didn't really matter in the end, and I actually thought overall the umpiring was pretty good on Saturday night.
Except for the throws.
But that was just, I thought, the most ironical umpiring call, that at the home of the Duke of Ducking himself, that someone is called for ducking into a tackle.
I think it was a ludicrous call against us, absolutely ludicrous. But the very handsome man, the very handsome ex-Geelong player, that was absolutely stupid what he was saying, stupid. And he should know better. He should know better.
Now, I'm not actually going to give it to him exactly for that particular moment. It was the fact that later on during the game, there were about 2 or 3 times it happened again, where we got them a little bit high and they got the free kick. Sorry, Ling, where's your comments then and there about this rule change because obviously those were incorrect decisions by the umpire, according to you, idiot.
Well, and Selwood must have got 347 frees that he shouldn't have got between that supposed change in interpretation and now, because that's what always happens. PJ Crow's backing you up as well.
This.
In case there wasn't enough evidence, he's mentioned the after-match interview with Lindsay Thomas. I know or boundary riders have got jobs to do, but Jesus.
There's things you ask and there's things you don't ask, and obviously within that situation you need to have some intelligence. For those who aren't aware, Lindsay Thomas was booed quite strongly. He was upset after the game, and it was very obvious that he was still upset. Ling's interviewing and asked him how it felt to be booed.
I was driving home from the snow on that when that game was on. Are you seriously telling me that he asked that question?
Yep.
What was Lindsay's response to that? I didn't see that.
Oh, I'm trying.
Well, I think he said it doesn't particularly bother him that it actually drives him on. I think he said.
What an idiotic question.
Precisely. So,
what do you expect him to say? I'm going to break down and cry.
As an aside, though, I felt it was really good of Lindsay. I think there were comments
to deflect
made later to the extent that he didn't associate the booing with any form of racism or anything like that. He's just generally not liked by opposition supporters. And a certain Australian of the Year could probably take a leaf out of that book. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, so this week's cockwombling numbnut of the week is Cameron Ling.
Yeah, I think as we got into that further, there's never going to be any other.
Keep going, Pete. I'm just playing.
Nah, sorry, mate.
You can't interrupt the Womble song.
Anyway, go on.
Love your work, Kate. Okay, let's look forward. Let's rub out all memory of last Saturday night's game and have a look forward to Sunday afternoon twilight at Adelaide Oval, where we welcome the Essendon Bombers for what is a critical game and a critical that we get a pretty decent win here, guys.
Yeah. What would you think would be the margin you'd like us to win by?
I think what I'm really most interested in, Macca, is making sure we keep them to a very low score. So I really want a really, really, hard performance from our defence and keeping them to a really, really low score. And even if you only win by 60 or 70 points, as long as you can keep them to 30 or 40 points maybe, you're going to get a real kick in your percentage, and that's really the key. You want to keep them to a low score. That's what really does give that percentage a boost.
But we are looking for a fair jump. We need something like about anywhere like 8% or 9%. So I think you're right about one part of one component of that is you just got to make sure that they don't kick very much at all. But also we have to make sure that we do, and I think we should be using it to practice to try and play very, very good football after the poor effort we put in last week. But I would hope for, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I would hope that we would win by up to 15 goals.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I guess what I was meaning before, Macca, is that just looking at, I don't know if you looked at how the percentage swung with us in Geelong on Saturday night. I mean, they got a decent little kick, and we got absolutely slaughtered, and we only lost by 30 points.
Yeah, good point.
And they got beaten by Brisbane.
Because it was such a low-scoring game, it did make a huge difference to the percentage differential between the two teams.
Well, it also helped though that you can double the difference because it's the two teams playing each other. One gets it, one loses it.
Yeah, absolutely true. But you're right. We need to, look at I guess somewhere around that mark, that 12 to 15 goals. I think is really what you're looking at.
Yep,
and just for you, Pete. PJ Crows actually did put it in there, but I was going to give you a bomb report for the weather. It's 18 degrees and fine, a little bit cloudy.
So it's going to be down.
Beautiful.
I should bring my umbrella then.
No, that's Saturday and Monday, not on Sunday.
Well, that's great news. That's actually, we need that badly, and we need good weather so that we can play our game and we can score quickly.
And there was some comments that like resting Tex and Talia, but we need to get percentage up. We need to have our best team on the park playing good football again all together. So I'm a bit loath to do the resting if they are well enough to play. Now Tex's ankles, the scans have come back all clear. And Talia, it's the corky. We rested him early as soon as it kind of happened. And he's got that little longer break. So I don't think there would be too many changes. Do you guys?
Well, you said that Walker's was all clear, but I don't think it was all clear. It's just that the damage...
It's not major damage.
No significant damage, but it might be enough that he might not play this week. And if it's wobbly, I'd rather see him not play than risk it and then possibly not be available for the next couple of games. But I would actually be making some changes in the sense that Henderson, in my opinion, has got to go out. He fooled us with one game, but he reverted back to being Hendo again, and Seaman should come in his place. And I just wonder whether Tomo should be given a bit of a rest and play one of the boys from down below and give them a bit of a chance.
Yeah, because we had this discussion on Sunday as to whether Wig is a chance to have a little go.
Yeah, we'd like to see Wiggy get a run. I think he really deserves to get a go. He's had really consistent form, and I think he's accepted the challenge of turning himself from a small defender into a midfielder, and is going really, really well at SANFL level. Would love to see him get a go. I'm kind of with Macca a little bit. With Nicky a little bit. I don't know if they're going to go down that path of resting players, particularly when it's not a dead rubber, and there is a lot to be gained from the game.
There is.
So I'd be very surprised, I think, if they manage, inverted commas, any players. I think, obviously, if there are genuine sore spots where players don't come up, then they may err on the side of caution a little bit more than some other games. But I think, generally speaking, I don't think we'll see a sort of a general policy of resting come into play.
No, if they do... Macca, if they do decide to play the Texan, what's the chances of McGovern having a rest?
Well, that's a good point. On his performance, he deserves it.
Yeah, look, I defended him through the week. I think he's actually had a pretty good season. He's ranked equal 15th in the AFL for goal assists, and he's kicked 21 goals. I think he's had an excellent first season. They may forgive him one really poor game and persevere, particularly given the opposition coming up. I think that they'll be, quite clearly, looking at the way selection has gone for the year, they're very, very loath to move away from the structure that they've got. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him retain his spot.
Douglas?
It would be for that reason, for structure only, I think, if he does retain it. On performance, he should be dropped, but he could well retain his position for just because they do like that structure where you've got 5 totally individual, totally different type of players in the forward line. So he could survive on that basis. My point about Tomo was more about the fact I just thought he looked very weary in the last game.
I mean, the club would know best there because they would have the information on his GPS numbers as to what level he was running at and what the base they expect from him. So it'd be interesting to see whether he does or not. I mean, Macca and Phoenix, we did debate this quite strongly on Sunday night. And we looked at it that there could be possibly up to 5 or 6 changes, and you wouldn't want to do that. So I think it would come down to injury, and then if anybody isn't quite performing at the level that you want. And so I think this week it'll be quite interesting to see what changes do occur.
But do you think Hendo will survive, though?
I hope not.
I won't be surprised if he does keep his spot, to be honest.
Riley O'Brien, anybody?
No, I don't think so.
Not unless Jacobs has got some sort of niggling injury that he needs a rest.
Correct.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to play him up forward. I mean, he's not too bad up there, and he does quite nicely in the SANFL, but we've seen before that he sometimes has some issues with his kicking. And I think, Pete, you've seen him this year as well, that he's worked past that, but it is a lot of confidence. So you wouldn't want to play him primarily as a forward knowing that he's had that issue before, because that could sort of send him backwards in a way.
What do we make then of the upgrade from the rookie list?
That was always going to happen, for my mind, because he got given the 2-year deal earlier last year, and that actually took him outside because you can only be rookied for, I think it's 3 years, and so that 2 years puts him into an extra year where he can't be a rookie. He can't remain on the rookie list. So the club was always going to upgrade him. It's just what happened regarding the draft and trading, etc., that we only upgraded Kelly as our first choice, and we kept him on the upgrade on the rookie list, knowing that we were going to upgrade him mid-year, which is when we did it.
Fair enough. So you don't see any selection on the horizon for O'Brien. Fair enough. I think that, for me, there just seems to have been a very, very steadfast policy this year of limited selection, limited changes at selection, I should say. And so I can't see that changing. I can't see that policy. And suddenly, as you say, 4 or 5 changes coming up. I think that 1 or 2 at the most. And as to whether any players are, in inverted commas, rested, like you say, Mako with Tomo, might depend on how fit other players are and whether there needs to be any other changes.
I actually won't be surprised if there's 3 or 4 changes. The really interesting thing for me is who would come in if Tex doesn't play.
Yeah, that's the big one if he doesn't play.
Well, then you'd probably bring in either Deer or Ramsey. Now, Deer plays... He has played the centre-half forward role a little bit, but he tends to play more deep quite well, and he's a lot faster than what people realise. But it could be that we just swap Tex out for his clone in Ramsey.
I wouldn't think so, because centre-half forward's a very key position, and what we might do is just go smaller in a forward line and just have another midfielder type, but a taller midfielder type in the side, and just have the one big guy up forward
with Mitch and Lynch.
And I think that they don't have a tall defence. I think that's probably not a bad idea. Not a bad thought process there, Maka.
Yeah, and that would enable us to keep the ball flowing very, very quickly. It's just too much to bring in somebody like a Ramsey at this stage of the season and ask him to perform in that role, in my opinion. So I think that what we do is just compromise ourselves. If Walker doesn't play, just compromise the forward line in the sense of just putting in another smaller moving player and just have this more agile forward line.
So that's where Henderson may retain his spot because we could shove him up forward.
He's the player I was thinking of that might well go there.
Yeah, either that or they just roll the existing forwards around a little bit so that McGovern perhaps plays closer to goal. Jenkins goes a bit further away, and they structure up like that. And as you say, they can just keep someone, have an extra player come in, to a midfield rotation.
Yeah, I reckon that's what they would do. It's something along those lines.
Interesting. I think that does nobody? I assume nobody thinks that we're in any kind of danger of dropping this game. It really just becomes a matter of the margin, and if we can put up the kind of margin that we really, really need, so it's somewhere anywhere between, as you say, make it 12 to 15 goals, then that will give us a bit of a chance, because don't forget Geelong also play Essendon and Brisbane, and I think they are actually in the box seat for a top 2 spot.
I won't be happy. I won't be happy with 12 goals if we let them kick 60 or 70 points. I'll only be happy with 12 goals if we keep them to, say, 24 or 30.
Yeah, absolutely agree, Danos. We can't possibly have them kicking, 10, 12 goals. That would be a disaster, even if we then go and kick 24.
Yeah, that's true. Pete, you say that we no chance of losing the game, and we shouldn't be. But if the players were as dismissive of Essendon as we are, they might be just a little bit too cocky.
They'd be horrified at the way we're discussing this game.
I know. I was just thinking that I hope to God the players aren't going to have our attitude, because they could get done then.
Well, last year's game was very tight up to half time. I think we were at one stage towards the end of the second quarter only about a goal in front or so, and then we kicked something like 19 goals in the second half.
Good.
It
It's a good
was
point.
11 goals straight.
In the last quarter.
No, we kicked 11 goals straight from, I'm trying to think what time in the second quarter. So I think there were 2 goals in the second quarter, and then 9 in the third. Then I think they kicked 1 goal, and then we did another run of, I think it was 11 or whatever. And completely and utterly demoralised them in that second half.
Well, if the Lions can beat them at Etihad by 1,000 points, then surely we can do the number on them at Adelaide Oval. Surely.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? But the players mustn't go out with that attitude. They must go out there with all jets burning and flat out.
Before last week, I would have said that it's not possible for the players to go in with that sort of attitude, but I sort of that's because I have a lot of confidence in how Don Pike goes about it. After this weekend, I'm a little bit concerned because of the performance that the coaches put in. However, if I go back a couple of days, I won't be surprised if we win this by 130 points.
I hope you're right.
So just
that would be pleasant to sit through.
Looking at how it all affects, because obviously there's been a lot of talk through the week about the premiership table, particularly the top 8, and how it's shaping up and the dramatic differences that results bring. How do we see the last 5 rounds playing out? Personally, I think that Geelong are in the box seat for a top 2 spot. And I think for us to get a top 4 spot, I think Sydney are the team that are a little bit vulnerable.
Who would displace it in the top 4?
Well, I would say us, Macca. I think that theirs is the spot that we would be chasing after. And I say that because the run home of the Geelong and GWS are particularly are pretty easy. And I think that I'd be very, very confident in saying that GWS and Geelong will take up, say, 2-3. And that leaves one more spot in that top 4. And I think Sydney is the team that has probably the trickiest run home, if not in terms of actual winning and losing, just in terms of building their percentage as well. I know that they're a little way in front of us at the moment, but I think they're the team that are most likely to be unable to really build their percentage, because GWS are a mile in front already with their percentage. Geelong have Brisbane and Essendon in their run home as well. So they will build percentage and they're already in front. So I think Sydney are the team. They've just got a couple of tricky games too. They've got St Kilda at Etihad and they've got North Melbourne at Etihad. Just a couple of tricky games to see. They're the kind of games that you wouldn't see them as really big percentage builders.
Yeah, look, I knew they had those games at Sydney, so I suppose you're right. That has got to be the target. With GWS and Geelong, have they got any tough games at all in the next 5?
GWS has North Melbourne at Etihad, I think. So that is a tough game. Geelong have only got Western Bulldogs Friday night. That's the only tough game they've got.
I think I might actually have to barrack for the Bulldogs for a change.
Oh, it's down there and there's injuries. I mean, I really can't see Geelong losing that.
No.
So that, to me, they're in the box seat there because that, and they've got, and as I said, they've got Essendon and Brisbane still to come.
Bugger, basically.
Yeah, really when you put it yeah, the door's pretty closed in a couple of positions, isn't it? So really, you're right. It has to be Sydney. Has to be the target. There's no doubt about that.
And even if they don't
And
drop
we-
a game, I can't see them having. I mean, even this week they've got Fremantle in the West. You can't see them. You assume that they'll win that, but they could quite possibly not get much percentage out of that game either.
Well, if Ross Lyon has his usual scratching, clawing type of game, well, that's possibly right. But they are a very, very strong side in the midfield, Sydney, though.
Oh, they're a very good side, and I'm not sure that they will lose another game, but I think that they're the team that we can at least target in terms of overtaking percentage.
Yeah, that loss really did cost us dearly, didn't it?
That one, and also the WS win over Port. Well, I was barring for Port, but that did cost us dearly as well. Port not being able to win that one, even though they were 4 goals up at half time.
Yeah, they weren't good enough.
So we've got our work cut out. I think even to get a top 4 spot.
You did press me a little bit when you look at it like that.
Sorry, mate.
I mean, all we can do is control what's controllable for us, which is to keep winning and to keep winning well.
Yes, coach.
But in a way that I'd much rather be in that position, because it means you just feel like you have a bit more control of your own destiny. You're not relying on other people doing things for you.
Well, I don't know about that, Nicky. We had control of our own destiny before we played Geelong on last week, in the sense that if we kept winning, we could finish second. And once we lost, I think we lost control of our destiny to some degree.
Is it that kind of year, given the evenness of the ladder and all the rest of it, and whilst top 4 gives you a home final, is it this sort of year where someone could jag it from outside the top 4, do you think?
No, I don't think so either. I think anywhere in
Only
the
unless
top,
it's Sydney finishing 5th.
possibly, but I think the top 4 you have a double chance that if you lose the first one, you still got the second one. Yeah, and there isn't that much between the teams. So, and as you said, Nicky, Sydney is probably the only other one. But I think that I'd like to be in the top 4 because I think that's where the winner will come from.
In my opinion, the only teams that have a real chance nowadays to win from outside the top 4 are Victorian sides who finish 5th or 6th, get a home final, and then play in Melbourne the next couple of weeks before the grand final. Interstate sides will be forever disadvantaged because while the MCG is the number 1 finals location.
Can't argue with that.
We did it in 98, though.
Yeah, very different final structure, though.
No, we still played 5 games, not at home.
We did lose one on the way, though, Nicky.
Yeah, but that was... We had a coach who actually didn't try to win that game once things started to happen.
I went to that bloody game and he didn't either.
Yeah, so did I. No, he deliberately...
Didn't we win 4 straight in 98?
We West Coast. Hang on, what did we do? We went West Coast, Sydney, Melbourne. Or was it Melbourne first and then Sydney and then back to Melbourne and Melbourne?
Melbourne was the first one.
That was 97.
Yeah. Yeah, so we played...
98.
We're a year out, I think, Nicky.
98, I think we won 4 straight to go top, and they're all away.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So it can be done.
it can be done, but it's pretty rare. All right, well, that probably just brings us towards the close of another show, another Tuesday Night Live. It's been wonderful to have you all listening, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. And thanks very much for those who participated with the messaging, and hope that we answered your questions along the way. All right. Thanks very much to Macca, Danos and Nikki. Appreciate your input, and, of course, Phoenix tonight as well. Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
No worries.
As always.
And as always, we thank Phoenix for his technical support and all the work that he does behind the scenes. Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll catch you
Bye.
next week on the Crowcast.
Farewell.
Bye.
See ya.